You are watching the Deadfoot Diver podcast with Kurt, the Deadfoot Diver.
Welcome to the Deadfoot Diver podcast today, where we talk about everything diving, tech diving, and especially bring to light the benefits of diving with disabilities. I am absolutely thrilled on my first season to be able to have my next guest on. My next guest is considered a rock star in the diving world, if not the world, period, when it comes to diving. She is a National Geographic explorer. If I actually sat here and had to list off all of her awards, it would take the entire episode and probably longer. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce world famous explorer Jill Heinerth. How's it going, Jill?
Hey, great. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, thank you very much for coming on.
Mhm.
I really appreciate this. It's an honor to have you on here. I have been a fan of your work and your diving for decades since I started diving, actually.
Awesome.
So it is a absolute treat to have you on here and supporting me in bringing the attention to disabled divers. So first of all, let's, if you don't mind me asking, I know
Mhm.
that you've had a lot of experience working with disabled divers.
Mhm.
So can you tell me about that?
Oh, I mean, honestly, we all have different disabilities and abilities, right? So, so for me, it's just an extension of the realization that scuba is personal. Like when it comes to fit for equipment and strategies for how to solve problems, there are lots of unique solutions that are right for somebody's different body proportions or someone's different level of abilities or flexibility or whatever. So when it comes to diving, I think that instruction and support and buddying is a personal thing. And so for me, it's really exciting to help people who have maybe more challenges than I do or unique challenges that just need to be overcome, because once we're beneath the surface, it doesn't matter like what gender, what color, what political background, what, level of ability. We are all able to float, neutrally buoyant in paradise.
Yeah, that's true. So can you tell me about, I know that you've had a chance to actually work with some amazing
Mhm.
disabled divers who are
Yeah.
doing extreme technical diving way beyond probably what I will ever even attempt to do. So, can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, for me, it's exciting. It's a learning opportunity when someone's able to like authentically share the challenges that they expect that they'll have underwater. And what I've discovered is actually most of the challenges are just getting ready for the dive. Whether it's getting into a suit or whatever, needing some sort of assistance to get in the water. Once you're in the water, you're home free.
Yeah.
I've dived with people who are living with paraplegia, for instance, and yet they can outswim 90% of others I know, like with their arms. It's just unbelievable how they can propel themselves through the water. And so I think a lot of people who dive with disabilities or challenges in their life, they have to find ways around everything they do. And so it's just another expression of their creativity getting into the underwater world. But once they're beneath the surface, it's like they're free. It's all of a sudden the things that, gravity challenged them with are gone. And they're so humble and just enthralled with the opportunity to really be free again.
Yeah, it's amazing the effect that scuba has on somebody. I mean, I know for myself personally, it has, getting back into diving again this time has changed my life beyond my wildest
Mm.
dreams.
Yeah, that's
Um,
cool.
it's been amazing. I went through years of depression,
Mhm.
a lot of not great stuff when I wasn't diving, and
Mhm.
I actually, it was a snorkeling trip in Cozumel where I actually happened to meet an adaptive diver who they sat her on the boat beside me,
Yeah.
and it's like, I can do this. I
Yeah.
spent the entire time actually
Yeah.
watching her when I was snorkeling instead of paying attention to all the marine life because I was like, why did I ever give this up? I gotta at least try this again. So the next
Hmm.
day I actually got into the pool and threw a tank on.
Yeah. And I think you brought up a really important point too, that it's not just physical issues that sometimes like slow us down or make things more difficult, but it's also mental health issues. And thank God we're able to talk about that a lot more openly now. But diving is incredibly powerful for mental health challenges too, like getting underwater and just getting out of your body and your mind in this incredible environment and sharing an experience with someone else is powerful. It's empowering for most people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I've had so much fun this year. I mean, doing this podcast has brought it to a whole nother level, just the
Cool.
people that I've met.
Yeah.
I've also been talking a lot with Jim Elliott from Dive Heart,
Yeah, great.
which I mean, his videos, I I actually have trouble going through them without crying.
Great. I know we all do.
Because I
Yeah.
totally, in my case, I totally identify with it. Uh,
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
amazing the impact it does, not just mentally,
Yeah.
physically. I feel way better. I mean,
Mhm.
when I was in Jamaica last month diving and I actually hurt my hand, I
Yeah.
felt way better when I was diving all week. If I had access to a recompression chamber, I would probably go right now.
Well, that's really interesting because there's unbelievable, like, therapeutic, benefits from the high partial pressures of oxygen. I mean, honestly, if hyperbaric treatment was cheaper and easier to deploy, it would be a mainstay of the medical system. I recently met a guy in Europe who he had profound, third degree burns on something like 40% of his body, and diving was his life too. And he was, first A, trying to survive, but then B, thinking about, oh my God, how am I going to dive? And the doctor's like, you're going to be in the hospital for probably 6 months in ICU. And he's like, no, I'm leaving here in 6 weeks. They're like, no, you're not. And he goes, yeah, I am. And 6 weeks, to the day, he left and he started diving right away, dry suit and everything.
Wow.
And, uh, and his burns healed incredibly well. And the doctor's like, what are you doing? He said, I'm diving. And he's like, oh, crap. You know,
It's
okay. It seems to be working,
It's
mentally,
funny
physically,
how a
everything.
lot of
Yeah.
doctors actually don't even, when they're thinking about treatments, don't even think about the benefits of hyperbaric medicine, like for burns or anything.
Well, in other parts of the world, they do. Like in Bermuda, for instance, they have an amazing chamber facility, and they don't have diver traffic that needs it. So they do mostly, medical treatments for people, spinal cord injuries, for burns, for gas gangrene, for diabetics, and they chart the progress over time, like day by day photos. They have the luxury because of the socialized medical system that they have that they could treat someone for a whole year. But imagine that if you're treating someone for a whole year, like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours a day, that's an incredible investment of the medical system, and it's only going to happen in a nonprofit situation. So that's why we're not going to see that happening in the United States anytime soon. But the therapeutic benefits of hyperbaric medicine are far beyond diving. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible what hyperbaric medicine can do, and
Mhm.
like you said, just about the mental aspect of
Mhm.
diving in
Mhm.
general with somebody's overall health. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I know that list reading your book here, Into the Planet. If you have
Yeah.
not picked up this book, you got to read it. The Audible book is absolutely incredible. I have actually
Thanks.
listened to it a couple of times.
Oh.
Authors, you need to read your own books.
That was hard, actually. That's a hard process for me, doing my own audiobook.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, because you have a director and an audio person who's working with you, and the director keeps stopping me, going, "No, no, no, don't improv. You need to read every word as you've written it." But when you start reading your own stories, you tend to improv here and there.
Yep.
She's like, "No, no, 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 word for word."
Which is
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, your book is incredible. It's actually
Thanks.
the best book I have ever read about diving and
Oh,
exploration.
thank
It is
you.
truly inspirational.
Thanks.
Um, so divers out there, pick up the book if you haven't, because you're missing out. Um, so in terms of some of the guys, I know that you've done some work with Hubert Crutchan,
Yeah, yeah.
who's actually he's the only really adaptive dive instructor anywhere in Canada.
Y-
He's totally swamped. He cannot even take any more students at all because he's
mhm,
so jammed.
mhm.
Can you tell me a bit about that and
Yeah.
about the type of stuff that he does?
Yeah, yeah, Hubert's a great friend of mine, and he's an excellent trainer. We first met when he was interning with me as a cave diving instructor, and then learning about his work, I started to just kind of be an on-call support buddy for some of his divers, and so he might call me and I'll run down to jump on a boat with him in Lake Ontario and go diving, but also he has, I guess, turned to me for some of the technical diving support for some of his students. So we've worked with divers with disabilities to train them as cave divers and side mount divers, and far
Which
beyond
is
single tank
incredible.
diving. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, we have a student that we worked with last summer or last winter under the ice that's now interested in side mount diving, and he's paraplegic, and so together we'll strategize to get it just right. And I love that challenge because I I feel like it's so important to have a professional and personal fit, especially when it comes to side mount diving. And that is exacerbated when you have someone who is diving with additional challenges and needs adaptation to the equipment to make it work. And sometimes that can even involve getting a waiver from a training agency and saying, all right, I know you think that this is the minimum tank size that someone should wear. However, with this person who's only got really the use of half of their body, we need to go a little bit smaller with the tanks. And all that's going to do is shorten their range within a cave diving environment. So there's nothing wrong with someone diving closer to the entrance of the cave. They need the same skills because they're in the overhead environment, but they don't have to go to the back of the cave to be a cave diver. So I love helping to find those interesting solutions that are unique and work for one individual.
Which is incredible because I know I found this year when I started diving, like I tried down the pool in Cozumel, came back, got a refresher again. And it was actually through a friend of mine, Robin, at Bob's Dive Shop, where I originally got certified back in 1991. And so Robin said, all right, you know what? I'm going to make you do a full refresher. Okay, cool. So I did. I'm glad she did.
Mm.
But then the issue was when I went to go diving. So I go out, get all my dive gear. I go and get a dry suit and everything else. And luckily, I had a dive buddy who actually was a dive master who actually has been an unbelievable amount of help just helping me adjust gear and figure out how to do stuff because I literally had nobody adaptive that was doing this type of thing
Mm.
to turn to ask.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to make up stuff on the fly. I can't count how many times I drove all the way up to Tobermory, get in there, and then it's like we do some testing, and then it's like, okay, well, we're not diving today, but I mean, at least at the tugs, I got to see a shipwreck.
Right. Yeah. For me, like I started diving at a time when the gear wasn't female specific. And so that's kind of where my journey began. And it might sound trivial, but it's so important because like when gear is just made for a man, then the shoulder straps are too wide. They fall off a woman's shoulders. Like, our necks are thinner, and so the dry suit seal that we pull over our head that just about takes the skin off our nose is still too big around our necks. Our bodies contour differently. Our weight is distributed. Our buoyancy is distributed differently, and everything changes. Like if you've got this like tight chest strap across a woman with big boobs, it's incredibly uncomfortable. So right from the beginning, I had to adapt the gear that I was given in order for it to work for me, especially when it came to tech diving. And still, we have a long way to go with women's gear. But so I was used to having to do that. And I've always said to people, there's not one solution. And then the other thing to remember is that survival doesn't necessarily have to be pretty. It doesn't have to follow this, rote technique that looks like perfect on YouTube, because that's not how emergencies go down. Like survival doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be effective. You just have to know what to do and how to do it for you to get yourself out of a problem. And so there's not one way. And maybe I'm a bit of a pariah for that, but I think the whole scuba community could use a few lessons from adaptive scuba.
Yeah, it's really awesome to see how these guys adapt I'm
Mm-hmm.
really looking forward to seeing how these guys actually adapt their gear and
Yeah.
what they have to do to overcome their disability.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I really want to meet this paraplegic who's doing the cave diving stuff.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
oh yeah. I'm super excited to actually go down and assist a dive with these guys because they're gonna kick my butt to want to
Yeah.
do better and do more stuff that I until now thought was
Yeah.
not gonna happen.
Oh, one of my, best, friends that I've met through Hubert is a woman who's paraplegic, and she is an absolutely extraordinary diver, and she's intro to cave qualified. She'd be full cave qualified, except that there's just a couple of, hiccups in terms of checking the boxes for the general standards, but she's absolutely exceptional, and I love diving with her.
Which is incredible.
Hmm.
When so let's talk side mount for a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you do a lot of side mount diving with cave diving, obviously.
Hmm.
I'm just starting to take up side mount. It was funny because when I first got back into diving again, there's a there's a retired military guy that I happened to meet when I started buying gear, who's been
Hmm.
helping me out.
Hmm.
And he actually has worked with people with disabilities and stuff. And the first time I went over there, I said, you should think about doing side mount.
Hmm.
And I'm like, side mount? Ah, that's full cave. Like, I'm not doing cave stuff.
Yeah. No,
But
side mount makes so much sense, for redundancy, for carrying the gear out of the water, right? Yeah.
that's actually why I'm looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
And why I'm getting certified with it, mainly because of my legs and getting
Mm-hmm.
in and out of the water. Especially even on shore dives, like even at the tugs up at Tobermory,
Mm-hmm.
where I can get in, but generally I'll take a few steps, I'll go down on my knees and then sort of drag myself out to where the other guys are because
Mm-hmm.
I just don't have the stability in my leg.
Right,
And
right.
wetsuit boots, as you know, provide no stability for a
Yeah.
leg.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
dry suit over boots, which I wear all the time, they actually do provide a bit. If there are
Mm-hmm.
any dry suit over boot manufacturers out there and you have one that's got a thicker ankle in it with more support,
Mm.
please email me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so what do you find, what do you like most about when you're diving side mount?
Everything. I dove side mount before I dove back mounted doubles. So side mount was just so logical to me, especially in exploration, because getting a set of manifolded doubles lowered down, into a cenote on rope is like super dangerous and heavy, right? So side mount just always made sense for me. But I'm going to mention one thing before we leave your last comment. Um, the combat boots that Converse makes that They're like a high top running shoe, but extra high with a lot of ankle support. Get a size that's like 2 sizes larger than your normal foot. It makes a great dry suit boot that has
Really?
stability. Yeah. Yeah, it
Oh,
doesn't have to be designed for the dry suit. So, yeah, Converse, like Desert Army boots, basically. Um, you need extra large fins to get them over the heavy sole, but it'll give you the support that you might want around your ankle.
oh,
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad because that's one of the things I hate. You
Because a
know,
lot of cavers, like cavers that do sump diving, they wear things like that because they need the stability to do the dry caving, and they need something they can also go into the water with. And
ah,
yeah, so
that's
just usually 2 sizes up from your normal will fit over your dry suit socks and stuff,
awesome.
depending on how many, how thick they are. Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna look into that right
Yeah,
away.
so skip the dive manufacturers, go outside. Yeah.
This is
Sorry.
why I have you on so I can get all these extra tips on how to do this type of stuff.
But you were asking me another question and I diverted back. So sorry.
Um,
Yeah.
when it comes to your stuff with I know that you do a lot of stuff on rebreathers,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
in cave diving. Can you now I know talking to Hubert, he says it's brutal diving in caves on a rebreather. Um,
Yeah.
can you tell me exactly what the challenge is and why it's so extra difficult when you're
Mm.
diving on a rebreather in a cave system?
Yeah. To begin with, probably no surprise to me, like rebreathers are a tool. Like I know a lot of people say once you're on a rebreather, you just can't switch back and forth between it and open circuit. And I'm like, why not? Maybe it's because you just made a $12,000 investment, but no, like it's a tool. And there's some environments where it's not easy to dive with. And those environments would generally be things that are shallow, and especially shallow overhead environments where you have to stick to a particular path so you don't damage the environment. Because we're all used to inhaling and rising up in open circuit, exhaling and dropping down. But on a rebreather, when you inhale and exhale, all you're doing is transferring gas between your lungs and a counter lung. And so you're not shifting your buoyancy at all. You're
Uh,
dead flat. And so rebreather divers, in order to control buoyancy, but also control their path, will often like swim around something rather than up and over, because as they go up, they've got to vent some gas. They go down, they've got to add some gas. And we're all like molecule misers on rebreathers. Yeah. So there's sometimes it's not a good tool. Like I remember an expedition in the Channel Islands off California, and the plan was to use our rebreathers for this deep cave exploration there where we were doing some photogrammetry, and we had a lot of scientific gear to carry as well. But on the far side of the Channel Islands, you've got the entire force of the Pacific Ocean causing this unbelievable surge. So we were literally being like sucked into the cave and shot back out, literally like 100 feet in and 100 feet out on a single surge of wave, but also like buoyancy shifts. And I was literally underwater barfing.
oh, in a in a rebreather, or was that on?
Trying to, yeah, close the loop, blah, put the loop back in, open. And I swam back to the boat and just went, no, no. And I took off the rebreather and went back to side mount, where it was a lot easier to control that. And barf. Yeah.
Okay, so for all the seasick people out there, at least even Joe gets seasick.
Yeah, sure. Everybody does at some point.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Deadfoot Diver. Subscribe and share. Your support means the world to me. If you'd like to contribute directly, you can do so at the link in the description at buymeacoffee.com/deadfootdiver. Every donation helps me work towards earning my Adaptive Dive Buddy certification, travel costs to help me assist other adaptive divers, and covering further training and equipment costs, bringing you on even more exciting adventures. Don't forget to check out my guest links in the description. And remember, grab an adventure and live, and don't ever let a disability keep you down.
Yeah.
So what would you say out of, I mean, you've dove most of the planet, and that's not an exaggeration at all. So and more than a lot of other people, you have over 7,000 dive
Yeah, actually, I recently went over 8, so
You
yeah,
went over
yeah,
8.
yeah, yeah,
Whoa.
yeah.
How many dives do you do in a year generally?
Well, the last few years have been slower, but at least a couple hundred dives a year. Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
amazing. So, out of all the places that you've dove, because you've dove the Antarctica, I mean, you've been a pioneer explorer in all kinds of different cave systems with 3D mapping and doing all kinds of amazing stuff. What
Mhm.
would you say is your most crowning achievement as far as a dive from a perspective of how you had to prepare for it and
Yeah.
what you did for it?
I think the dives I did during the Wakala 2 project back in the late 90s were like huge for me, like really pivotal in my career. We were making the world's first three-dimensional maps of any underground space, and we were doing it on rebreathers. And in the late 90s, that was pretty fresh. So my longest dives on those missions were like 22 hours.
22 hours.
Yeah, yeah. So, um, huge dives, and it really it took me 2 years of training and preparation for those dives. And at the time, we didn't even have rebreather classes. Like when I got the Cislunar Mark V and asked Bill, who was going to teach me, he's like, "Well, we don't have a class. You'll figure it out." Yeah, so it was more like kind of crowdsourcing information from the few people that were in the game back then. But it was pivotal for me because up until that point, scientists didn't take cave divers very seriously. They kind of looked at us like adrenaline junkies out to get ourselves killed, and for some reason that was a bit valid. There were a lot more accidents, back then. And after that project, they realized like the scientific data that we could bring to people that would never have the capability of going to places where we were going. Suddenly, we had a new relationship with the scientific community, and for me, that helped me to really pinpoint my way forward in a career.
That's amazing because I know that like when I started back in the 90s, tech diving was definitely on the fringe. I was actually just getting into doing a bit of decompression diving and
Hmm.
technical diving with doubles and stuff when I stopped diving.
Mm.
And I mean, back then, even nitrox was ooh,
Oh,
bad
I
stuff.
know. Voodoo gas. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
was
what they called
actually
it.
just gonna say that.
Yeah. Yeah, for those that weren't around diving back then, there was the most popular dive magazine, Skin Diver magazine. The entire issue was dedicated to why nitrox is a bad idea and why it's dangerous. And I don't know if you know the roots of why that issue came out, but uh, back then I was on the Cayman Island Water Sports Operators Association,
Yeah,
and Cayman was the biggest dive destination in the world. We bought the most advertising in Skin Diver magazine. Like, the magazine was buoyed up by the Cayman Islands tourism industry. But there were some operators in Cayman that were just, turning around boats like crazy. And they were afraid that if people had nitrox, they wouldn't stay down longer. So if they stay down longer, maybe you don't get 4 turnovers a day. And so it was a bottom line kind of thing. Oh, we have to mix a different gas. We don't really understand this gas. And it may mean we put less people on the boats every day, lower bottom line. So it was really interesting. But what turned the tide was that the one company in Cayman that had the most staff decompression illness hits, we decided to put the entire staff on nitrox for a year and see, how this could change things. And these people were diving, 4 dives a day, deep shallow kind of thing. Um, and after they got on nitrox, nobody got bent anymore. So doing the same profiles they'd been doing. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess that whole voodoo gas thing was a mistake. you know?
you know, I got certified in nitrox back in 1996,
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
by Dick Ratowski.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was actually I did a course with him and a couple of technical, there were I think 5 other instructor buddies of mine
yeah,
at the when they used to have the Underwater Canada show.
yeah, yeah.
we all took the course from Dick that year, and
Yeah.
we actually took a lot of heat from other instructors
I bet. Yeah. Yeah.
about diving nitrox at the time. We
Yeah.
actually, the organization that I taught for, we all did, and we actually got pulled aside and we're like, hey, you guys can't be doing this, blah 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 blah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all very secretive back then, like, garage mixing and everything else. Yeah, but yeah, those early 90s when I was in Cayman, the operation I worked for had a waiver. The rest of the island had very strict, like, max depth and types of dives and everything. We had a waiver because we were on the wild side of the island and we're doing stuff a little bit deeper and a little bit different. And so I was like screaming for nitrox and tech diving, and we weren't even calling it tech diving back then. But yeah, it was a tough pill to swallow. But you look at Cayman today, and it's actually a great destination for recreational and technical diving. There's lots of support for people that are diving deeper or on rebreathers or whatever.
Yeah, which is awesome that they've enabled that. I mean, I
Yeah.
was shocked last year when I went to Cozumel,
Mm.
and when I signed up for the snorkeling trip, and I was looking at the board with who was diving nitrox and who was diving air, and there were literally out of like 4 boats, there were 2 or 3 divers out of the whole list that were not diving nitrox.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that something?
So yeah, it's awesome, and I definitely believe in the safety factor in it. I mean, anybody who's read enough stuff on it um can and talks to people like you, you're probably about the best one experienced with doing more nitrox dives than anybody.
Yeah, I've done a few.
So when you're cave diving and when you're getting ready to do all these deep dives and stuff like that, do you guys, a lot of the focus I've noticed since I started diving again this year is a trend towards not teaching dive tables and not teaching um, the risks of decompression sickness,
Ouch.
and basically saying, here's your computer, follow your computer. what
Ouch.
what's your opinion on that?
Well, I guess I'm an old school purist. I mean, when I learned tech diving and trimix and everything, it was all manual calculated tables, and you calculated your tables, you calculated your 10-foot deeper tables, you had all kinds of contingencies all manually mapped out, you calculated oxygen exposures manually, and so I want people to understand, like what is the computer doing? Like a lot of people who get into tech diving, there's a lot of concepts that are quite foreign, whether it's your gradient factors or whatever else. And most people go, oh yeah, I understand gradient factors. It's just like, probably not. But so I'm gonna do this lecture anyway and hopefully make this simpler. So you have to understand what that device is doing, and you have to have a plan for how you're going to manage yourself if it fails. There are a lot of people who just kind of jump in the water and do what the computer tells them, as opposed to even pre-planning a dive. And I'm a real fan of plans and checklists.
Especially diving rebreathers. I mean,
Oh God, yeah, it's inexcusable if you don't use a checklist. Like, and I feel very well qualified to say, you know what? After 8,000 dives, I still use a checklist every time I use that rebreather, and it's not a matter of, like, I could tell you that checklist word for word right now, but we get distracted, and we're out in a beautiful world. Someone needs a mouthpiece, someone needs something, and suddenly you've cut that checklist in half in your brain, so it should be on paper, or electronic, whatever method, but you should be going through something that's physical, that's a reminder, because human errors are human errors because we're human and we make mistakes, and so I feel my life is worth preventing those mistakes.
Yeah, I mean,
Checklists
the
help.
consequences of a rebreather are serious, death. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no
And
way
we
around it.
and we
And I
don't
mean,
find dead guys with checklists. Like,
no.
yeah.
It's, I mean,
Yeah.
I had John Chatterton on the other day, and he said the same thing. He says, every death on the dory is diver error.
Of course, yeah. And you know what? When we look at rebreather failures and issues that caused a death, we can look at the true root cause of these accidents and find that 90% of those issues could have been prevented by an action taken before the person went in the water. So they made a bad decision on the surface. It had nothing to do with what happened underwater.
So when you're prepping for a rebreather dive,
Mhm.
how many days before are you starting to work on your gear and do checklists? Because I've heard people say that, like, if they're diving on Saturday, they're starting to check their gear and go through their checklist multiple times, starting on like Monday.
Yeah, I mean, it's just through experience. Stuff can happen, or I mean, yeah, I've got to do an annual service, of course, on my rebreather every year, and so that's part of the preparation. I need to get the rebreather together, but I also need to get me and the rebreather together too. So I may need to jump in the river out back and just refresh my skills as well if they're rusty. So yeah, it does depend, but definitely, like, even if I'm fresh and constant and everything else, I like to have the rebreather ready the night before and tested, and then it's a quick retest in the morning before I go diving, because it's just nice to go to sleep knowing there's no issues. Because I've said this before. In fact, it's a bit of a grim story. Like, this would be about almost 20 years ago. I was sitting on a boat when my Optima rebreather that I was diving at the time failed just as I was about to jump in the water, and it had passed its pre-dive checks. And I went, oh, huh. And I sat down and everyone's like, what's going on? And I said, oh, my rebreather just failed. So I'm, sorry, I'm going to be snorkeling. It's a little too close to, jump time to
Yeah.
deal with this. And they're like, oh, but you can run it manually. And I'm like, yeah, I can run it manually, but I'm not going to. If there's one thing you learn from me, I do not jump in the water with something that's already broken. Like if you had a checklist that says this is the minimum requirement for the rebreather to go diving, then you got to stick with it. So 2 out of 3 sensors means you sit on the bench and you don't go diving, where a lot of people have gone diving with 2 out of 3 sensors and then ultimately didn't come home.
Yeah, I've talked to several people who have known of people who passed away using rebreathers.
Hmm.
When I was younger, I absolutely wanted to do a rebreather. It was
Yeah.
because at the time it was cutting edge and stuff. And not only that, the depth restrictions that
Yeah.
it enabled and how long I'd be able to stay underwater for. Now with my old age, or since I'm 55, I mean I'm not
I'm older
old,
than
but
you are.
yeah, yeah, you're a couple of years older than me.
I'm a few years older.
Um,
Yeah.
so uh, but with that,
Hmm.
and also I have ADHD, so I mean I
Hmm.
forget stuff, especially when
Yeah.
I'm excited about doing something or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, for the podcast, eventually, I'm hoping I'm gonna get to do a rebreather session in a pool, like to do it
Mm.
just to try it and
Hmm.
experience
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Um, I'm pretty sure after everybody I've talked to about rebreathers and the preparation and the checklists involved, I'm gonna be out after that point.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's
So
not for everybody, and as I said before, it's a tool, and so if it's a tool that enables a type of diving that you're ready for and want to engage in, great. But yeah, it's not for everybody, and it's not needed by everybody. It's a big investment.
oh yeah, they're
Yeah.
definitely not cheap. I
Yeah.
mean, even the cheapest ones I've seen going, you're looking at thousands.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I also want to touch a bit on you actually, your ex-husband Paul Heinerth,
Hmm.
another legendary cave
Hmm.
explorer. So what was it like working with your spouse and the challenges of that when you're trying to do certain dives? I mean, I maybe you want to actually recount the story about when you were on the ship to the Arctic with him.
Oh, to Antarctica.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, poor Paul. Yeah, Paul gets horribly seasick, and uh, he he is also French Canadian, and so English was not his first language, and people forget that because his English seems perfect, but there's some little nuances of the language that he sometimes misses. And I had told him that we had a 12-day crossing to Antarctica from New Zealand, and he thought 12-day crossing meant 6 days down and 6 days back, and after he'd probably lost 15 pounds at this point. He was being so seasick. He grabbed me and said, "You lied to me." And I'm like, no, 12-day crossings mean 12 days down, then the project, and 12 days home across the most violent seas on the planet. So I don't know if he ever forgave me for that. But the more seriously though, the question you're asking is about diving with your partner, and that's difficult. It's extremely difficult. You may make decisions that are different with your partner, whether it's your spouse, or whether it's your child, or whether it's your dad, or someone that's incredibly close to you. You have to really think about how it may change your risk envelope. Like I remember doing an expedition dive with Paul, and he was really frustrated with the technology that we were using. It was really hard to pilot, and he was frustrated, and he was cursing and swearing, and then we also kept getting separated because he was just having a struggle with some of this gear. And so I would get ahead of him, and then I would kind of circle back, and that was just pissing him off through frustration. But both of us were just diving with so much stuff, literally like 500-600 pounds of gear we were dragging through this cave. And I heard him cursing and swearing, and I took it very personally. Like I thought he was mad at me for getting ahead, and I found myself, 300 feet deep on a 20-hour dive, and I'm crying, right?
Oh,
Because I think he's mad at me, my husband. And, was he? Maybe, I don't know. Maybe not. But the end result was like I found myself in this emotional state that was completely ridiculous for the task at hand. Like, I know now that you got to leave the emotions behind. You got to leave them on the surface. And maybe you can't do that with your spouse or your child or your parent or whatever. And if that's the case, then maybe you should each dive with someone else. And on that project, I came to that conclusion. I said, I think the world of you, your skills are unbelievable, and there's nobody that's more angelic in the underwater environment than he is. But I couldn't partner with him for such big dives. And it wasn't the end of our diving. I mean, even after we were divorced, I hired him for a bunch of projects for film things, and it wasn't that we couldn't dive together. It was just in those huge risk situations, it was difficult. In fact, I found it easier after we were divorced. There wasn't the emotional baggage attachment that really made the risk greater.
I could see that with the danger involved. I mean, especially having your spouse. It was funny. I interviewed Greg Hilliard the other day, and
Yeah.
I had him talk about diving with his spouse.
Yeah.
And same issue. It's he's like, yeah, your emotional levels on a total different state
Mm-hmm.
when you're diving with your spouse, partner, or anybody that you're really close to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And maybe it's like you're trying to impress them. Maybe it's you're trying to, be as good, or maybe it's something else. Who knows? It's just a baggage that you bring from the surface underwater with you. So maybe it's best to leave that behind, because oftentimes we're better buddies with those we're not as close to. Like I have some really close buddies, but we're super authentic and honest and straightforward with each other in a way that funny enough just doesn't translate as well when someone's too close.
No, I totally get that. Especially when it comes to your putting your life in their hands, or vice versa.
Ooh, well, I mean, that's the other difficult thing. What's going to happen if there's a crisis, if there's an emergency? Like, are you going to end up dead too? Like, are you, what happens at that moment that you realize you can't save that other person? And then even just the guilt that you would carry, even if you were not a party to their accident, like not being able to save your partner, like, do you really ever want to go through that? Like, I don't know. Yeah.
I can't imagine that, especially even just listening to you about when I've listened to your interviews about you recovering, how many friends that you've had to recover from cave diving.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's bad enough when it's a friend, but if it was your family, your spouse, like, whew, I'd rather just prevent that situation. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Yeah.
So let's talk a bit about Tobermory, because I know that
Yeah.
since this is a Canadian podcast, and I know that you've done a lot of diving up in Tobermory.
That's where I got certified. Yeah.
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 It's actually, I live actually just an hour and a half south of Tobermory.
Oh,
So
right.
for me, it's awesome. I finish work at like, when I do finish work, I finish work at like 9:30 in the morning. I can be up at Tobermory to like do an afternoon charter or go diving right after. So it's amazing.
Nice. Nice.
So I know that you got certified up there. You do a lot of diving up there. Even still, I understand that you come up there a fair amount to do diving. So what's your favorite shipwreck up there to dive on? Why?
Oh, I've they're all great. I mean, I love just jumping in the water at the tugs, even just because it's so accessible, or the sweepstakes, right? Like shore dives with really cool looking wrecks. But I've just always had this like warm spot in my heart for the Arabia and the Forest City. But pretty much everybody does, I think. Yeah.
The Arabia is an amazing dive.
Well, when I learned to dive, it was before zebra and quagga mussels, and you might have experienced this too, where you go down the line to the Arabia and you'd hit this big cement block. And at the time, there wasn't a line that led from the cement block to the wreck. Mind you, it was only about 2 meters away,
Yeah.
if that. But back in those days, you'd hit the block and you couldn't see the wreck. And,
Oh yeah.
a couple of meters of visibility was sort of normal up there. Like the invasive mussels changed all of that. And so it's a whole lot easier dive now, but it was quite mysterious and really fascinating back then, but I still love it. Yeah.
Well, for those of you that don't know about the Arabia is a schooner that sank in the 1800s. It is relatively intact. It's an amazing wreck to dive on. I've actually gone night diving on it a couple of times.
Yeah. Cool.
Back in the day. I'm actually really excited because this year, one of my goals is that actually I'm going to do the Arabia again this year. Because I haven't done it in so long. And you cannot, for anybody who hasn't dove it, I mean, you can't explain what it's like when you come up on the wreck, and especially when you see the bowsprit with the chains hanging down on it.
Right. That's the prettiest part. Yeah. It has changed a lot in 25, 30 more than that years. It is kind of starting to fall apart a little bit more, but it's still so cool. And now, I mean, you can see it stem to stern. You're descending on it, and pretty quickly for the surface, you're like, oh, wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that's what I'm really looking forward to this year, because I've never seen it that clear up there.
Right, that way, yeah.
And even at the tugs this year, I was amazed at the visibility up there, and at the water temperature.
I know. A few years ago, like when I first moved back to Canada, like 6-7 years ago, I was up in Tobermory and I saw people like just snorkeling at the tugs in bathing suits.
Yep.
First of all, they could see all of them from the surface and just snorkeling around. Second of all, they were in bathing suits, like, in the water at Tobermory. Something that it's a lot warmer on the surface now, and they were in the water a long time.
I remember, like, when I first started diving at Tobermory back in the day when you did, like, how cold it was, regardless of how deep you were.
Yes.
And I mean,
Yeah.
on my computer, I have multiple dives where the water temperature above the thermocline was 73 degrees this year.
That's crazy because it was always like on the bottom, it was always 4, it was just always, right? Like 4C. Um, yeah, and it wasn't a whole lot warmer coming up. Yeah, it's
E-
crazy. Yeah.
every single dive instructor I made friends with at Divers Den this year
Yeah.
could not believe
How
how
warm.
warm the water was up there.
Yeah, it's a bit
Which,
worrying.
yeah, actually, that was my next question for you. Actually, is what do you think about all the effects of global warming on the marine environment? Because the
Mhm.
temperatures are staggering.
Yeah, it's shocking. I mean, people of our age and number of years diving shouldn't have seen so many changes in the environment, not just locally, but all around the world, whether it's, coral reefs and bleaching and stony coral disease, or whether it's, clarity in the Great Lakes and collapse of the, native species population in the Great Lakes, or whether it's the loss of sea ice in the north. It's extraordinary the things that are changing. But, I think that us as sort of people of the water planet, the water warriors, that we have an opportunity to share these insights, these stories that maybe will awaken others who don't see the changes that we do to the existential threats that we as a species are facing as a result of these changes in the climate.
So, what do you, out of all the places that you've dove repeatedly,
Hmm.
where have you gone back recently and then gone, oh my God, I can't believe the damage due to global warming and stuff like that, or to hurricanes, or which
Yeah,
I mean is also part of this
yeah.
global warming stuff, the amount of hurricanes that we get now.
It's at both extremes of the planet. Like we see less of those changes in the middle latitudes of Canada, for instance. Like we can still go out west and see all the incredible charismatic, megafauna and everything, even though some of the environment has changed there. Same thing on the East Coast. But, if you go to the north and you see the loss of sea ice, it's palpable year on year. It's setting up later each year, it's breaking up earlier each year, and it's changing the entire, marine regimen there. And then the same thing at the warm ends of the planet in the tropics. Like where I really really cut my teeth in diving was when I lived in the Cayman Islands for a few years, and it was this amazing, beautiful, resplendent, healthy coral environment on the east end of Grand Cayman. But now it is really stressed, and it's shocking to me to see the changes in the tropical environments.
So, do you think that part of that is also from the amount of diving activity that some of these locations get?
No, I mean, yes, in the sense that like sunscreen is a horrible, horrible thing that harms the marine environment. Yeah, but diver traffic, you know, that is not what's driving the global existential threats right now. Yes, there are stressed sites from physical impacts of divers, and then also from the sunscreen they're wearing on their bodies or whatever else. But that's site specific. That's like sort of looking at weather versus climate. It's like it's windy today, it's snowy today, it's rainy today. One day's good, one day's bad. But it's really climate. The changes over time that are important. And in the diving, it's the changes, the global changes in the marine environment that are frightening in places where divers have never been. Whether it's microplastic pollutions, warming oceans, ocean acidification, that's all global stuff. You could live in the prairie provinces and be affecting the ocean with your behaviors on land. Yeah, you don't have to be a diver.
Yeah, a lot of people don't think of that aspect of that. Even though you're not a diver, you're affecting the environment when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind how you still see all these people on the news and stuff like that who are saying, "Oh, that this whole climate change thing is a farce," etc. how do you even dispute that when there's the record number of hurricanes and more severe storms and
Yeah.
flooding?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, when we were making the film Diving into the Darkness in the last couple of years, everywhere we went around the world to do our filming, we came up against these like 100-year, 1,000-year weather events. And atmospheric river in New Zealand, for instance, and it's like, wow, tropical cyclone down there that filled the airport with waist deep water.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so all I would say is like, hey, just observe the changes in your own local environment. They're happening everywhere now. There's absolutely no doubt.
Yeah. So I want to move on a bit about
Mhm.
your Diving into the Darkness movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Tell me about it because I've only seen a couple of clips of it,
Hmm.
unfortunately, because I missed the online screening of it last summer when it was
No
on.
worries. Yeah. Well, hopefully
So,
soon we'll have a streaming deal and we'll get it streaming globally. But yeah, yeah. Well, the project started, I guess, when I met the director about 7, 8 years ago now, when I was in Australia speaking. And during the COVID times, he read my book and said, "Oof, I want to make a movie about your life." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like it's a bit scary. But we developed this incredible friendship, Nays Bagai and I gave him access to all my archives, and he is an extraordinarily talented filmmaker. And when it came time to film, we had my archival materials, but we still needed to travel around the world and do some recreations and get some new footage and then put it all together. So this past year, we've been traveling around the world doing festivals and little bespoke screenings just to get the marketing started. And we've been winning a ton of awards, which is kind of exciting.
I seen that. I seen you just picked up another award in Alaska.
Yeah, we did. We
So,
did.
I mean, your travel schedule is insane.
It's been a bit much.
Is it, are you normally this busy every year? Or is it extra busy because now you've got all this media stuff to do with the,
It's been a little bit extra this year, but I'm happy to kind of just now take a chill pill, slow down for a bit, because I've got so much, filming and expedition work going on as well in between all of these, media type trips, and I'll let go of some of that and just focus on the expeditions this year.
well, I'm very glad that you've taken time to join me here because I know your schedule's super busy
Yeah, my
uh,
pleasure.
and stuff like that. I understand a little common acquaintance that we have actually mentioned that you are probably coming to Tobermory actually diving this summer. I heard.
Yeah, yeah. So Sylvia, who's works for Blue Heron Company and will be running Divers Den, has said, "Hey, come on back up." And I'm like, "I'll be there." Maybe we could figure out how to do a screening up in Tobermory too.
That
We'll work
that
on
would
it.
be awesome. That I'm
Yeah,
sure you would definitely sell out at that.
yeah. I think
Um,
that'd be a fun thing to do. Go back to the scene of the crime.
well, well, make sure that when you're up here, hopefully you can let me know so that I can make the drive up and get my book signed from you.
Oh, you bet. Yeah,
And
you bet.
if you have any now Hubert didn't want me to do any side mount stuff with any other instructor type thing, so I wouldn't pick up any bad habits. However, I think in this case he's he's trumped. So I'll have my side mount certification by then. So if you have time to
Cool.
go for a dive, I
Yeah.
would love to get some critiquing.
Cool. Let's do it. Let's
All
do
right,
it.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Awesome.
So well, I want to thank you very much for joining us today. I know that your time is extremely valuable and busy. And I have thoroughly enjoyed this. It has been a
Oh, me
total
too.
honor to have you on the show. And I'm looking forward to meeting you this summer when you're coming up to Tobermory.
Yeah, let's
And
make it
by the
happen.
way, I'm going to have all of Jill's links down below the video here so that you can check our podcast or newsletters, all that type of stuff. So thank you very much for joining the Deadfoot podcast, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks, Jill.